Hello, this is Bob Nelms, and we're going to talk about this, changing the way we are, the unavoidable, painful change. I'd like to give special thanks to a forum that I have been a member of and actually created in 1999 called Root Cause Conference. A lot of the thoughts and even some of the quotes you're going to hear is from this forum. I'd especially like to thank a friend of mine who I've never met person to person, but I still feel like I'm a friend of his. And I'm not even sure how to pronounce his last name, but I call him Tori Skoglund. Tori has made a lot of impact on me with some of his comments. And he is from looks like a beautiful little village in Norway called Elverum. So again, we're going to talk about changing the way we are. The unavoidable, painful change. Look at this photograph for a minute and acknowledge, please, that everything you see in this photograph, except for the man himself, was created by human beings. Well, I guess the man was too, wasn't he? The cabling, the flames, the iron, the steel, everything was created by human beings. And as safety professionals, which is what this talk was created for, we deal with the results of human interactions with nature. Right? You know, it's interesting to think that when human beings impose themselves upon nature, when we take the raw elements of nature and we transform them into things like you're looking at, or like we saw in the last photograph, when we impose ourselves on nature, when we interact with nature, it responds in the only way that it can. Some say nature responds in a perfect manner. Now, I've been hearing that for a long time. Nature responds in a perfect manner. So I pursued that a little bit, that whole word perfect. And I guess I discovered some things. You might already know this, but this was a eureka to me. What does the word perfect mean? Being entirely without fault or defect? Satisfying all requirements? Corresponding to an ideal standard? Faithfully reproducing the original? You know, when I thought about this, I realized that really perfect is a matter of perspective, isn't it? I mean, isn't that why we have a number of judges when they're looking at a performance, for example? And isn't it interesting that when they hold up their scorecards, they're all different? What is perfect to the woman in the middle doesn't appear to be perfect to the other women on the edges. When it comes to human beings, perfect, then, is a matter of perspective. And really, this applies to everything. What is the perfect car? Well, doesn't it depend on where you're going to use the car? Or who you are, even? I mean, the perfect car to you might not be the perfect car to me. The perfect car for me when I was going to college was the Volkswagen bus. I actually lived in one of those things when I was in my youth. It was perfect for me. When it comes to human beings, perfect is a matter of perspective. What is the perfect house? I wouldn't consider this the perfect house, but I'm not an Indonesian. I would consider that log cabin to be more of a perfect house. But that's just me. What about the perfect lifestyle? Have you ever gone into anyone else's existence and said to yourself, ooh, I wouldn't want to live like that. Well, that might not be perfect to you, but maybe it's perfect to them. When it comes to human beings, perfect is a matter of perspective. Again, perfect or perfection is a human construct. It really shouldn't apply anywhere else than things that we judge. But nature, according to many, many people, is always perfect. It's not a matter of perspective. If we have 10 people looking at nature, we can't have people voting less than 10. It responds the only way that it can. Nature's perspective, therefore, of perfection doesn't vary. If I push on my desk with 10 pounds of force, the desk is going to push back on my hand with 10 pounds of force. If that guy pulls on those oars with 50 pounds, the water is going to push back on those oars with 50 pounds. It never varies. Gravity is gravity no matter what. It doesn't decide whether it's going to be gravity, 50% of the time. If that guy throws that ball in one direction, he's going to go in the other direction with the same amount of force. And so on, and so on. Here's one. Newton's third law of motion. For every male action, there is a female overreaction. I had to throw that in there, just for a little bit of humor. When it comes to human beings, when human beings impose themselves upon nature, therefore, and this imposition results in pain, when there's a fire, when there's an explosion, when a piece of equipment goes down unexpectedly, when somebody gets injured, when somebody slips, trips, or falls. So when humanity and nature collide, and when there's unexpected, unplanned pain, when we push on nature, and the cause and effect relationships come around and slap us on the side of our faces, how should we respond to that? How should we as human beings respond to that slap that we just got from nature? This is what came from the forum that I talked about right up front. I'm going to look at this in terms of past tense, present tense, and the future. First of all, how have we responded in the past when we respond to nature and we get slapped in the face? And in the past, we might have said, uh-oh, we're down. How am I going to get things running again fast? Or we might have said, geez, this just cost us a fortune. What am I going to do now about meeting my budget? Or we might have said, another reportable incident? This is going to end up at the VP's desk. He's going to want someone's head. Now, I hope this is not how you're responding today. This is the Dark Ages. This is dinosaur stuff. Another procedure violation? Let's tighten down on discipline. We have to hold people accountable. That's how we used to respond until we got a little smarter. Let's go to present tense. When human beings impose themselves upon nature and this imposition results in pain, how do we respond today? Now, what I'm about to say is not true for everyone. It's probably true for the leaders. Maybe in our most noble moments, we try to understand more about nature when something happens with our interaction with it, so that we can manipulate it to better suit our purposes. And we try to understand more about our own nature so that we can manipulate it, our own natures, that is, to better suit our purposes. We manipulate Mother Nature, we manipulate human nature to better suit our purposes. And our purposes aren't always money-driven, like this image. There's a lot of times we think we have valid purposes that are aside to money. But we're still manipulating Mother Nature and human nature to suit our purposes. Is that what we should be doing? The conversation on the forum that I mentioned drifted then into this. Is that what we should be doing? When human beings impose themselves upon nature and this imposition results in pain, how should we respond? And this was very debatable. How should we respond? Some quotes. Well, we should definitely try to understand why we experience the pain with root cause analysis type inquiries. But what are we selling with root cause analysis? One guy said we're selling out. Are we merely selling out to our own preconceived notions of how things should be? Have we built human performance and root cause analysis models to merely find things we want to find, to support a deeper but perhaps faulty underlying goal? Are there issues we are not willing to question because we consider them unquestionable? You know, I don't know how anybody can be in this business, this root cause analysis business, and eventually not wonder about these things. Is our definition of perfection flawed? Some quotes from the forum. We should realize that just because we don't speak about something does not mean it doesn't exist. The big issues are not easy to fix for a reason. But we should at least make them real by speaking about them, shouldn't we? Some of the big issues are a side effect of the way we are. Look at the title of this talk, Changing the Way We Are, the Unavoidable Painful Change. Some of the big issues are a side effect of the way we are. If we define the side effects as problems, we should also acknowledge that the way we are is a problem. Again, if we define these side effects, which is the pain that we're feeling, as problems, we should also acknowledge that the way we are is a problem. If we interact with nature, human beings interact with nature, and the side effect is pain, shouldn't we be acknowledging that the way we are might need to change? So when human beings impose themselves upon nature and this imposition results in pain, is it nature that has to change? Or is it us? Well, I hope you already know the answer to that. Nature ain't changing. It's going to have its own way. Every one of these photographs is almost dramatic proof of that. If you let anything go, your cars, your homes, yourselves, anything, it's going to go back to the way it was before. Nature will have its own way. How many examples of this have we seen? It's going to have its own way. Sometimes it takes longer than other times for it to go back to the way it wants to be, but it's going to have its own way. And some of these examples are horrible to think of. But I want to make sure you get the point. Nature will have its own way, no matter how we have imposed ourselves upon it to keep it from getting there. And of course, this is true for us. I'll use me as an example. This is a picture of me several years ago. And once again, nature will have its own way. So is it nature that has to change when we impose ourselves upon it and it results in pain, or is it us? Leo Tolstoy, one of his most famous quotes of all time, is this: "Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change himself. And yet it's us that has to change." You know, Malcolm Muggeridge is one of my most favorite guys to read. And again, look at the title of this: Changing the Way We Are, the Unavoidable Painful Change. He said this before he died in 1990. "Looking back on life, it's one of the things that strike you most forcibly, that the only thing that's taught anyone anything is suffering, pain, and failure. Not success, not happiness, not anything like that. The only thing that really teaches what life is about, the joy of understanding, the joy of coming in contact with what life really signifies, is suffering and affliction." And then there's Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese-American poet. One of his books was called The Prophet. Now, I'm no reader of poetry, but somebody told me to get the book and read one chapter, and there was one chapter in the book The Prophet that was on the subject of pain. Oh, what a chapter! And there was one phrase in the chapter that really caught my attention: "Your pain." Now, he's talking about emotional pain, psychological pain, is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. What he's saying is this: every human being is like this. We walk around with a certain understanding of truth. You've all heard about the elephant and the blind men. And, you know, there's 5 blind men, and they're all at different parts of the elephant, and they're all feeling a different part of it. And one blind man thinks an elephant is a column with a big base on it, and another one thinks the elephant is this long tube, a long slender tube, etc., etc. They're all seeing different perspectives of truth. None of them is seeing the whole truth. And the only way to see the whole truth is for that shell to crack. And the cracking of the shell hurts. That's just what it's like to be a human being. So when human beings come in contact with nature, and something goes wrong, what we consider wrong, and it results in pain, what we have to realize is that this is what's happening. That shell that encloses our understanding is cracking, and that has to happen in order for us to see a larger version of truth. In the past, the cracking of the shell caused us to want to understand more about Mother Nature. Oh, we got hurt. Our shell cracked. We want to understand more about Mother Nature. And that's kind of a shallow, trivial type of pursuit, is to just understand more about Mother Nature. But as we understand more, some of us at least are becoming more willing to question our own nature. This is a more deep, profound understanding. So therefore, how should we respond when the pain comes into our lives, when something goes wrong with our interaction with human nature, well, aside from understanding how nature behaved the way it behaved, which we should do, don't get me wrong, we don't want our bridges to collapse. So aside from understanding more about Mother Nature and then manipulating it to suit our own purposes, be willing to ask the deeper questions, the more profound questions. What is it about the way I am that contributes to the problems around me? And what is it about my view of perfection that might be flawed? And then maybe even acknowledge that the turning point in our lives is when we stop seeking the God we want and start seeking the God who is. Changing the way we are. The unavoidable, painful change. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Please send me an email and let me know what you think. Thank you very much.